Well, we meet once again. Welcome to La Jolla Insiders Video. The website itself, this is something that we really recommend you stare at when you have the time. There's a lot of elements that we have taken great care to impart to you, the elements of La Jolla, not only the best hotels, the best restaurants, but a little bit about its background, its history, and what you can find when you're here. Explore the website, LaJollaInsiders.com. There's a lot of information there, particularly about the history of the personalities that have been raised and gone on to extreme careers in entertainment and in news and in also literature. Dr. Seuss is from La Jolla. Ted Geisel, there's a lengthy story about him. Gregory Peck, everybody knows Gregory Peck, born elsewhere but raised here in La Jolla and went from here to stardom, as well as Raquel Welch, a graduate of La Jolla High School. I think she graduated in 1957. But she went on to an extraordinary career, and she's not done yet. And news, a fellow named Tucker Carlson spent his formative years here in grade school and in high school, and has gone on to a career in news as well. A lot of literature in print and also video, television. So those are the elements that I think you'll enjoy reading, and there are more names that we're going to be writing up and putting on the site as well. Other luminaries of La Jolla, and some notorious as well. And anyway, that's what we really recommend that. Now, you may have seen the last video, and it was about breakfast places in La Jolla. And we never got through the entire list, and certainly there are a lot more than we have on our list, and we'll be covering those in subsequent videos as well, because we want you to get the entire experience here, particularly if you're a sincere foodie. There's lots to sample here, and that's what we've got in ACES in La Jolla. As well as retail, shopping is wonderful, and the art aspects, the culture, we'll be covering as well down the line. But today, we're going to be talking about the rest of our top 10 restaurants and focusing on breakfasts. By some people's standards, that's the most important meal of the day. Well, not everybody feels that way about it, because there is a new study that if you snack during the day, Michael, this is true, you can start with a light breakfast, but it's okay every couple of hours to have something else to eat and to complete your nutritional regimen. And breakfast, you don't have to power up. You don't have to. A light breakfast is good, but we are not recommending that here. When you're visiting, spend as many hours as you wish at breakfast and sample the entire menus, particularly at one of our legacy restaurants. It's been here since 1968, and that would be Harry's Café. And it's an old-school diner motif. You go in there, and the same booths are stuck against the wall. It has been for decades. Started by a fellow named Harry Rudolph, hence the name Harry's. And he's out of New York, and came to San Diego because his beloved Dodgers left New York and went to Los Angeles, and he followed them. And he was absolutely, his history is that he was a bat boy for the Dodgers as a kid, and was a fan all the way through his adult years until they moved the entire team to L.A. And he followed them, and L.A. wasn't his cup of tea. And so he traveled south into, actually San Diego and La Jolla, and discovered that this is a place at that time in the late 60s to be a paradise. Not that it isn't today, but it was less populated and the traffic was a lot less, and that goes for L.A. as well. But San Diego and La Jolla specifically, the late 60s was the place to be. And he saw a community and became a part of the community with his 9 children and his wife, Kathy, who is a dear friend of mine. And the family is still running the restaurant. Harry Jr. is now in charge. But if you want some old school, and that's what this is, old school, with pictures completely covering the walls, pretty much of Harry's life and sports teams that he supported, not only at the major league level, but locally too. A lot of little league pictures are on the wall because Harry had a love affair with baseball. He passed away a few years ago, and his service in the center of the town at Mary Star of the Sea Church was packed with people at his memorial, and the crowd bled out of the sanctuary down the stairs to the street. They put up speakers so the minister could be heard for the entire service, but by the people it was SRO and beyond that as well. It was that kind of a tribute to Harry Rudolph that many people showed up and in honor of his life and his service to La Jolla. Now, as far as the meal itself, what you'll be finding on the menu, the omelets. My favorite is the Denver omelet. That's me. I'm always good for that. And the toasts, simple, sourdough, and then the whole list, rye and everything you want there, and hash browns or anything else on the menu that goes along with the it's traditional. We're talking traditional. Everything you might have found in Iowa or in Georgia or any other towns across the country that are serving breakfast, it's pretty standard. I don't think they have any grits, so I don't think we're going to be talking about that. But certainly, at Harry's, we're going to be getting an all-American breakfast with a staff that's been there for a very long time. They know people's names, and it's just it's kind of like the cheers of diners in that everybody knows your name. And again, the regular crowd, and there's a standing regular crowd seated in the booths. And as you walk in, everybody waves and then nods at you. It's a very friendly circumstance and one you wouldn't expect in Southern California, where people tend to be a little aloof and remote, but not in La Jolla. It's a community, and that's the difference between, say, L.A. and San Diego. It's a community. We call it La Jolla Island. We live in a bubble, so to speak. Michael, what do you got?
Well, Ron, Harry's is also one of my favorite places.
Ooh.
But unlike you, I choose the American classic, which is a stack of pancakes, scrambled eggs, and bacon. And
where's that? Where?
At Harry's.
Oh, at Harry's. Okay, you're talking about
at Harry's.
Okay,
oh, absolutely. I couldn't let it pass by without me sharing what I like at Harry's. And
understood.
something you may not be aware of. My first trip to San Diego was in 1960. And indeed, I stepped foot in Harry's at that point in time. And it hasn't changed.
You were a mere child. Yeah.
Oh, right. And it hasn't changed a whole lot since. It was great then, and his children have carried on the tradition very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was really fun in the 1980s when grandmother was still alive, and she was at the register. She she watched everything, and this would be Harry's mom, and she was good. She was special, and once again, it was a family operation, and even some of the wait staff were the kids as well. And like I said, Harry Jr. now runs the place, and it's not so much the family involvement outside that, but you still get that traditional familial feel when you're there. Now, go ahead.
Well, a place that might be of interest to those who would like to get a little closer to the shore, but not on the shore, is the Cove House. They're really located in what was the original business district of La Jolla. And the Cove House is open for breakfast and lunch. And believe it or not, they also have a happy hour. They open at 3 p.m. for a happy hour. But I want to focus on the breakfast at the Cove House. It's housed in a cottage from the early 1900s. So that in itself is kind of a cool experience. And they have extensive outside seating, and with the outside seating, you have a clear view of La Jolla Cove itself, which really adds to the ambiance. I mean, it really is kind of soothing as well as interesting, because you can watch what's going on in the cove. In terms of food, they have, I would say, a good array of food. And they, like most of the restaurants, if not all the restaurants in La Jolla, breakfast places, use local merchants, local produce, etc., whenever possible. If there's a local supplier, they'll use it. So you're really getting food from La Jolla and surrounds. It's relaxed, casual, but yet somewhat intimate. It's a very interesting atmosphere there. My own personal favorite is a special of theirs, the crab beni. You've got to try it on. It's great, Ron. You ought to drop by and check that out. And, of course, a cup of their coffee. That's my way to start the day.
Adding along to the crab beni, their sliders are really good. Mm-hmm. I think that they've got a good grill there as well. And I'm more familiar with their happy hour and their hors d'oeuvres, and they put out a good plate all the way around. So either way, breakfast or later in the day, you're going to be happy with the Cove House. And you mentioned the Cove itself. It's not on the Cove, but it's right above Scripps Park. And Scripps Park is just a large expanse of grass right at the water's edge, so easily accessible by stepping out the front door and crossing the street, and you're in the park. And if you're there for just relaxation, it's a nice dessert, so to speak, from eating a good meal and then walking across the street and just casually walking down the sidewalk above the water. And you go from the cove itself, where you'll see all the sea lions perched on the rocks, and it's quite a view right there, up close and somewhat personal. And then around the sidewalk and down to the right. Look behind me. You see the waves? That's called the breakwater, the wall, and that is what stops the water from flooding into a small beach where we have a whole lot of harbor seals, and people line that the wall, and not on that particular day if he washed away. Right. But typically it's accessible for the pedestrians to go along the top of the wall and just stare down at the sand and watch the harbor seals interact with each other. And it's just delightful for that. It's called the Children's Pool for a reason. It was donated, the wall anyway, for the kids to play in without too much wave action. That's why the seawall, built in the 1930s, is there. And now it's been taken over by the seals. And a lot of the longtime residents who did swim there as children are a little angry about the presence of the harbor seals, because it prevents, by law now, that you can't swim there. And it's just given over to the seals themselves. So at one end you've got the sea lions, the very large sea lions, and over here the very cute harbor seals. So you've got that. And like I say, after you spend time at the Cove House, you can spend time in the park, and it's a double win. And really recommend it. Michael, moving on.
As the picture demonstrates, though, if you're a photographer, the Cove is a superb place to be, and especially during a storm or king tide or a combination of storm and king tide. Then you can get
what
some
is a
photos.
king tide? Whoa, back up. What is a king tide? You touched upon that.
Well, king tide is nothing more than a tide that's above the normal level for tides in our area. And it produces, as you can see, some spectacular waves. And it's had an impact on at least one of the restaurants in our area, which we'll cover another time.
Yeah, but before we go, talking about the king tides, that's what that was, the wave action on that day. And that was taken by my wonderful wife, Kathy. And I think it's one of my favorite pictures. And that's why it's behind us today, so you can enjoy it as well as I do every day in my living room. Michael, was that it for this moment, or shall we do one more?
Why don't you take one more? Brockton Villa?
Okay. Oh, perfect. Now we're talking again, viewpoint, and this is right above the Cove. Brockton Villa is an old house built in the 1920s and given over to a restaurant. It was a residence once upon a time, and it still feels like that when you go into the dining room. It's very cool. It's the old shiplath and b-board on the walls, and it's just got an old house feel to it. Comfortable, intimate, and the food is extraordinary. It's traditional once again, and with an accent on seafood, of course, given the fact that we're right there at the water's edge, right above it, and the interior is a delight, but what I consider to be the real plus is walking out and sitting at one of the umbrellaed tables, and it's just a terrific view. You can see the sea lions from there, and the birds on the rocks below, and the coast all the way up, well, for miles. It's all cliffs. You can see the view from there. Oh, watch my finger. There it goes all the way up. And it's just a terrific place. Friends of mine own the place, and they rent it out to the Heine family, and they do a really great job, and they've been there for quite a few years now. And so you've got the benefit of experienced servers, a great chef. They change on occasion, but it's always, the recipes are standard, and the food is good, and the view extreme. And when you're here, Brockton Villa, Brockton, Brockton Villa. Okay. So,
and my favorite,
yes,
my favorite at the Brockton Villa is their French toast. I dare say that it's the best French toast that I have had in La Jolla or anywhere surrounding La Jolla.
What's so special about the French toast?
I have no idea, because they're not sharing their recipe. Because if they would, I'd make it. But it's just, the flavor is just superb, and it's the right thickness, the right degree of doneness. It's just smack your lips French toast.
Well, that's an endorsement. And, okay, we'll keep the secret for now. Perhaps one day we can reveal what it is that makes the French toast so special. And with that, I think we'll leave you. We've got more to tell you, but I think we'll move on and return another time. Until then, this is Ron Jones and Mike Mozaika saying thank you for spending a few minutes with us, and we hope that what we've given you whets your appetite. Until next time.